current state of politics in the United States is an incredibly volatile cocktail that can be set off at the slightest provocation. This results in a highly divided and uncompromising situation in which nothing beneficial to anyone can seem to get done. The situation of division and lack of compromise is further licensed by people on the radical ends of both sides, who serve no purpose and only discern their political views. These individuals make it very difficult for compromise on any issue, and often cause dangerous and violent situations that turns the public away from real issues. And issues that every American can relate to, per se, healthcare, transportation, and education, are left in the dust as more quote-unquote controversial issues that take precedence.
I'm Neil Katz. I'm the Executive Director of the Collin County Republican Party. I've been involved in politics about 30 years. There's still a lot of polarization in this country, unfortunately. I work elections, and half the people I work with in elections are the other party. We get along fine. There's no issues. You'll have about 20% of the people on each party who are at the extreme poles, and they get all the publicity. They cause all the trouble. They probably take up 30% of my work time just trying to put the pieces back together.
The controversy on these issues, mainly abortion, gun violence, and healthcare, remain ingrained into the platforms of both political parties, ingraining division much more deeply into the political realm. The parties became increasingly hardline on these issues, often resulting into congressional deadlocks and, in the case of Obamacare, shut down.
So we were talking earlier about like how Washington, nothing ever gets done.
Right.
Really.
Good luck.
And that's pretty correct, honestly. What we're trying to think about is like, what do you think needs to happen in order for like the political parties to come to compromises as was intended in Congress?
I think there are people willing to compromise on both sides. I think the first thing they have to do is decide that, it's a full-time job up there. Every 3 minutes they're starting another recess, which is ridiculous. In fact, I'll be honest with you, 2 days after the Obamacare bill, anti-Obamacare bill was pulled about 2 months ago, I got this nice little letter from Paul Ryan saying, hey, would you like to contribute to my campaign? I just wrote back, I'm on recess right now, and mailed it back to him. They're always out. I'm tired of that. I'm tired of the rhetoric. I'll give names, I don't mind. John McCain, for example, he runs to the press every time there's a problem. And he knocks Republicans, and he thinks he's a big man with the press. Well, if he knocks a Democrat, the press will ignore him. If he knocks a Republican, they won't. And I think the problem with the Republican Party especially is infighting. We're so busy trying to prove that one side is better than the other, there's no cohesion. I like to say that Democrats might have 48 senators, but they have really one senator, they have 48 votes. They're united. They get things done as a party. The Republicans don't because of infighting. And that's the biggest problem we have right now as a party.
Issues such as transportation and education that actually matter to Americans are cast aside for meaningless bureaucracy and saber-rattling. Much of this can be observed in the presidential debates as of late, and various attack ads leveled by both parties.
He called this woman Miss Piggy. Then he called her Miss Housekeeping because she was Latina. Donald, she has a name.
Where did you find
her name
Where
is
did you
Alicia
find
Machado.
Where did you find
and
it?
she has become a U.S. citizen, and you can bet she's going to vote this November.
Okay, good.
This is quite disconcerting, as if our representatives cannot stop themselves from name-calling and come to a compromise, how can the people have a good example to follow?
My name is Mike Rollins. I'm county chair of the Collin County Democratic Party.
A lot of people vote kind of based out of habit.
Like always voting to one side.
Yeah, and kind of out of social affiliation, like my friends, the people I work with vote this way, so I'm going to vote this way too. They're not generally as openly ideological as you might think from looking at Facebook or looking at the news or something.
The cause of this division between the two wings dates as far back as the antebellum period and the Civil War. However, the current situation we face came into form much more recently.
To be an outgrowth of a more nationalistic, somewhat xenophobic trend worldwide. In Europe, as well as here, you have a number of factors coming together, still some fallout from the 2008 crash. And a lot of immigrants coming in. And there's an anti-immigrant sentiment, there is a protectionist sentiment.
As Rollins states, the parties became divided primarily over key, specific issues, and, in his opinion, racism.
It seems now in Washington, D.C., that it's much less about compromise and more about I'm right and everybody else is wrong, even with our politicians. We don't have statesmen, we have people looking for their own interests instead of the interests of the nation.
And the ties to the parties.
Yeah. Do you feel like a political upheaval of sorts would be necessary to fix government?
Again, this gets back to my comment that the two parties are not equal.
Yeah.
My perception is the Republicans are much more guilty of that than the Democrats were. You can go back to various news articles and stories about the day of Obama's inauguration in 2009. The Republican leadership in the House and Senate was plotting how to make him a one-term president even then and block everything he would come up with.
This level of congressional deadlock and seeming impasse of any meaningful legislation has caused sectarian division to flare up in ways that haven't been seen since the 60s and desegregation. Frustrations flare as violence fill college campuses and the internet. This violence and this inability to discuss differing opinions without name-calling is stifling the democratic system put in place by our founding fathers. The founding fathers, mainly Jefferson, did not envision a Congress infested with corporate greed and partisan divisions. In fact, Washington warned that political parties could lead to the very issue that we are facing today. However, political parties may now and then answer popular ends. They are likely, in the course of time and things, to become potent engines, by which cunning, ambitious, and unprincipled men will be enabled to subvert the power of people and to usurp for themselves the reins of government, destroying afterwards the very engines which have lifted them to unjust dominion. A 2016 poll divided Americans nearly 50-50 between the two parties. This division highlights a severe rift in partisanship within the United States. We are on a razor's edge, and no one is willing to compromise. A Pew Research poll also found that 38% of Democrats had a very unfavorable view of Republicans, and 43% of Republicans had an unfavorable view of Democrats. This is without a doubt a consequence of polarization and intense partisanship, resulting in the lines between personal and political sides of a person are becoming blurred. From this data, we can extrapolate that those who found the other side unfavorable would not likely have a meaningful and civil discussion with members of the other party. This cannot work in a democratic society where we must talk out and compromise on issues to achieve progress. The issue of lack of compromise and animosity towards members of the opposing party is fostered and worsened by the poles of the parties. The poles are the radical ends of the left-right spectrum. At these ends lie instigators and media whores who aggravate the already tense national situation. These individuals tend to be the most polarizing force in the two parties, driving away discussion and moderates.
In the media, on either side, whether you go to Fox News or CNN, there's a clear bias. There's always something they don't want to show you on either side to make you believe their rhetoric. So this isn't really like a public service anymore. It's more of we're supporting this side because our corporation wants you to. So how do you feel about that?
I feel it's horrible. The best example for me was I was at the 1996 state convention in San Antonio. The word abortion or pro-life, pro-choice was not mentioned all day. I get back to the hotel at 10 o'clock, I turn on the news, and it says the abortion issue continues to tear apart the Republican Party. And what a member of the press did, they found one pro-life guy buying a necktie, one pro-choice guy buying a necktie. Hey, we're split. And a lot of times the press writes a story. Even I was at the National Convention this year in 2016, and as the balloons were dropping and everybody was cheering and having fun, I had a reporter come up to me and ask me if I was from Texas. And I didn't say, well, I am wearing the funny hat, and I got the shirt. But he said to me, could you support Trump now that Trump and Cruz are battling each other? And I said, well, you know, I was a cruise delegate, but Trump is the nominee. And he said, thank you, but the look on his face was, you didn't give me the story I wanted.
See, that's a good point, because they seem to want to raise issue where there is none.
Well, Ed Housewright, for example, is a guy who wrote in the Morning News years ago, and he told me flat out one day, he says, Neil, if I don't write controversy, I don't get printed, I don't have a job.
The media has a motive, and that motive is money. Gone are the days of Cronkite incredible journalism. The recent rise of biased journalism, whether on the left or right, has a habit of finding division where there is none, and creating tension to push.
I think it's a disgrace that information that was false and fake and never happened got released to the public. As far as BuzzFeed, which is a failing pile of garbage.
Profits. The recent media obsession is fake news. This has become laughable, a desperate deflection from their utter humiliation in the aftermath of the 2016 presidential election, and their seeming inability to accurately and objectively deliver the news. This obvious and deliberate fanning of sectarian flames on both sides is, simply put, completely and utterly useless.
It's kind of hard to really have a reasonable debate with a lot of people now, because they tend to operate from different sets of facts. You can see it, a lot of the time they will challenge each other's facts. And when you can't even agree on a common set of facts, you don't have much to talk about.
Yeah, you don't have much for common ground. And then so there's like the idea of that like people go to their own news sources, and so what we're thinking of as kind of a solution to this is to get people to get outside of their boundaries. So to urge like conservatives to go beyond Fox News, to try and yeah, definitely, and then just try and get people to go outside of their news, because I think what I've seen is that people go to like news, like Fox News, to confirm their beliefs, and whereas I think a main solution we could use to go against this is to use different news sources, and to get like varying opinions. Would you think about?
I think it's a reasonable thing. And there are, in my opinion, a lot of false equivalences being drawn. The fact is that one side, the conservative side, is much more guilty of it than the other. There isn't a liberal or progressive network out there that says we're the only ones with the truth. In fact,
I am officially running for President of the United States, and we are going to make our country great again.
Recently, in the 2016 election, the public saw increasing amounts of conflict and hatred.
I'm Hillary Clinton, and I approve this message.
You work hard. You pay your taxes. So why didn't Donald Trump pay his? He claims he's worth $10 billion. But a new report shows he may not have paid any federal taxes for almost 20 years.
He didn't pay any federal income tax.
That makes me smart.
If he thinks that makes him smart, what does he think of you?
How stupid are the people of the country?
Trump Care would gut the American healthcare system to cut taxes for the rich. It just passed the House, and it breaks all Trump's promises.
I am going to take care of everybody.
But millions would lose health insurance.
You protect people with pre-existing conditions.
I would do that.
It does the opposite. Trump Care even attacks Medicaid and Medicare.
Millions of older Americans can lose coverage.
And your member of Congress voted for it. Let's hold them accountable.
17 intelligence agencies, civilian and military, who have all concluded that these espionage attacks, these cyber attacks, come from the highest levels of the Kremlin, and they are designed to influence our election. I find that deeply disturbing, and I think it's time.
She has no idea whether it's Russia, China, or anybody else.
I am not quoting myself.
No idea.
I am quoting
Hillary, you have no idea.
17 do you doubt 17
our
military
has
and
no
civilian
idea.
agencies? Well,
yeah,
he'd rather believe Vladimir Putin than the military and civilian intelligence professionals who are sworn to protect us. I find that just absolutely
She doesn't like Putin because Putin has outsmarted outsmarted her at every step
Trump,
of the way. Excuse me. Putin has outsmarted her in Syria. He's outsmarted her every step of the way.
I do get to answer.
Many people refuse to talk about politics, just as the discussion of slavery was stifled in the 1800s. This is the exact opposite of what we as a country should be doing, because refusal to talk does not allow for people to communicate their different opinions. Therefore, this issue is very cyclical. If people refuse to talk, then understanding opposing views decreases, and the hatred towards discussion of politics increases, which in turn discourages meaningful conversation.
Concerned of what's happening way up in Washington.
Agreed.
What are some issues we face here in Plano that we should, as concerned citizens or students, think about?
Well, let's see. Plano was basically designed in the 60s when it was 4,000 people. That's when the master plan was built. A lot of the sewer lines were put in the 60s and 70s. They have a life expectancy of 50 years. Guess what? It's 50 years. So you've got infrastructure, number one. Two, you've got an aging population in Plano where, more and more people are becoming senior citizens, 40s, 50s, etc. You will have to have more facilities designed for them, senior living centers, senior housing, etc. Three, traffic is a major issue in Plano. You guys know it. You sit at a red light 4 cycles in a row and just wondering if it's ever going to end. And granted, a lot of the traffic is coming in from other cities, as the mayor said, but we generate a lot of our own. And, it's Toyota's coming in here. That's not going to come in from Frisco. That's Toyota's. They're in for Plano. So traffic is a big issue. School system, not that much. It hasn't really grown that much per se. It's been moderate, so that's not a big issue. But I'd say transportation, infrastructure, and aging population are 3 big ones right now.
What do you think people can do on a personal level to open themselves up more to intellectual and political discourse?
I think what people need to do is get involved. The opportunities are there. For example, if you go to our website, collincountygop.org, at the bottom it says sign up for a newsletter. And you sign up for the newsletter, and it reaches about 3,000 people. It lists every club meeting. We have 16 clubs. We have a speaker on DART coming up. We've had speakers on the Middle East, people who have actually been there. We've had clubs do speakers on terrorism. There are plenty of opportunities to find out what's going on in the world, unfiltered by the press, which is very important. I had 15-year-olds knocking on my doors. It's great. You don't have to be an adult to get involved in politics.
The problem we brought to your attention truly damages the country and the principles that many brave men before us died for. The solution is not as clear-cut as many of us would like. There is no X value, as it were. Rather, we all must do our part to be open to discussion and political discourse and be active in the changes you want to see. But don't let this blind you. We're all countrymen, wherever we're from, whoever we vote for. We are Americans. And as Americans, it is our responsibility to maintain the democratic principles of our government. So the next time you see a news report highlighting our divisions, take it with a grain of salt and hope that we can all come together as Americans, united, and learn to listen to each other once more.